Hi, I recorded a whole video, but I wasn't recording. So, welcome to 180 Days of Lang. My name is Heather, and today we are going through the rhetorical appeals stations. And I did such a good version of this in the previous draft that didn't get recorded. So, this one's going to probably be more concise. We are going through 2 days of lessons because in my room, which is only 42-minute class periods, this takes me 2 days to get through these stations. There's 5 stations, so you might be able to get through them all in one lesson if you have a block schedule, or split it up like I do. But what I'm going to do in this lesson is tell you about how I review appeals from our flashcard notes the day before, then what goes into each station, and then talk about some logistics things. So I have students bring their flashcards to get them out, and then they're going to hold them up to vote for what they think is the dominant appeal in this little quick review activity. So I'm going to give them a company slogan, like this one, for example. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. The little Geico Gecko says that, right? So hopefully they're going to hold up the Logos flashcard because that's a pretty clear, logical appeal. There's just numbers and simple reasoning. So we're going to practice that with a few of them, and then they can talk about misconceptions, clarify those things. Then I'm going to go through the station directions with students. So just to back up a little bit, I'm setting up the room like this. I have these little fold over station signs, so I'm going to spread those around the room, and then I'm going to put the station directions, one copy of that at every station. And then I have the student handouts for each station, and I'm going to put a pile of those, one for every student, at the stations as well. So this takes a little bit of setting up ahead of time, but you'll use it for 2 days if you've got shorter classes like me. So here's what goes on in each station. So in the first one, students need to be able to access a playlist of videos. So you may have to do some workarounds, whatever you normally do, if you don't have access to just YouTube. These are all perfectly appropriate videos, but just a heads up. They need to watch these few videos, and then there's a handout where they're going to make an assessment of what is the dominant appeal in that video and explain it. So they're going to watch it with their group, talk about it, and then everyone's going to write on their paper. The second station, keeping along with that commercial theme, students are going to make their own infomercial, as seen on TV style product commercial, whatever you want to call it, but it's for a silly product. So I gave them 5 silly made up products, like for example, a reverse microwave that cools your food when it's too hot, something that, as far as I know, doesn't exist. And they have to write a little script for their TV commercial, and they need to use 3 appeals. So for that one, they might show like an emotional appeal of someone painfully burning their mouth on a Hot Pocket and screaming or something like that. A logical appeal might be it's only $29.99, but if you call now, they'll throw in, I don't know, pot holders or something with it. Just they'll think of some fun things for this one. And then they're going to draft out a very simple script for their commercial using the 3 appeals. So those are always funny. The third one, I give them basically a practice quiz. It is the same type of analysis questions on a short text, just like their quiz will be. I really love the text for this one. It's called like the moon disaster speech. It's a speech that was written by like the presidential speechwriter at the time of the first Apollo moon landing, like Neil Armstrong, that one. But they never had to give it because they had the speech ready to go in the emergency event that the astronauts were lost and could not make it back or were killed in the mission. And so it was what the president would have said had they died or been left behind. And it's really powerful, and it's just like a crazy alternate timeline kind of feeling thing, but it's got some strong evidence of the appeals in it. So students will work to annotate and discuss that and then work out the questions together. And again, it's just like their quiz, but it's just a different text. So it's a good practice for that. Station 4 is creative. So I just put out some plain old paper and just markers, crayons, colored pencils, whatever you got. And I want them to make a poster advertising our AP Language and Composition class. And their audience are like sophomores that are considering taking the class next year. And so they have to pick like one appeal that's obviously the dominant appeal on their poster. And then what I like to do is hang on to these. And then during course registration season in the spring when kids are trying to pick, I put them up in the hallway. So I try to invite kids to consider the class and take it. And I actually have one of these from several years ago after I first came up with Space Cat. And we started using this mascot. One of my kids made this fun little Space Cat poster, was her appeal to pathos on that. So I kept it because it was just so cute. All right, and then the last station. This is a 3 Appeals scavenger hunt. I would say if you have to cut one, cut this one because this one has the most teacher prep ahead of time. You need some kind of stack of like magazines or maybe newspapers or junk mail. Works really good for this. I'll show you the junk mail in a second. But you need like a bunch of ads, and then they're going to go through and find examples of appeals in the ads. So I have always just kept magazines and catalogs as I get them for this one. If you don't have a stack of that, ask around. Somebody might have some. I've always kept them around for things like blackout poetry, this activity, a few other things. But if you're not a hoarder or you're just starting out, you may have to acquire some. One thing you can do is if you buy any home decor item from Walmart, the Better Homes and Garden line, for some reason, all of them include a little subscription card for the free 6 months of the Better Homes and Garden magazine. So I've never paid for that one, but I've got it for years because I bought 2 lamps over the last year or so from Walmart. But here's how it works with junk mail. So this literally just like the Papa John's coupons kind of stuff that they stuff in your mailbox like once a month. Oh, this is a really good one. Here's a Life Alert ad on the back. It says, I live alone, but I'm never alone. Life Alert is always there for me, even when I'm out of my home. So there's a lot going on in that one, but students can have a good conversation about the appeals. Here's an appeal to logos. If you buy this walk-in shower, you get a free toilet. That's a good deal if you're in the market for something like that. Junk mail, magazines, anything that you can put a little stack of. You just want enough for everybody in the group to be able to look through, and they're not cutting it out or coloring or circling it or anything, so it won't get messed up. All right, so I have a stack of these handouts at every station for students. Logistics. I give them about 15 minutes at each station. Some take longer than others. That's just always going to happen with stations, and depending on the individual groups. So I try to give them some time on the second day to get caught up if they didn't finish something at a station, and then we'll go over the station materials and stuff as a class after we're all done with them. I have students just hang on to the handouts until they're done with all 5, staple them together and turn them in, and then I just do 1 grade on that. But we will go through especially the practice quiz one at Station 3. We'll talk about that together. So this is just a great way for students to approach the appeals from a lot of different directions. So if you think about it, you've got some creative stuff, you've got some analytical stuff, you have all these multimedia approaches to the appeals, and then you have that writing practice with the practice quiz. So there's a lot of ways for them to explore and apply the appeals and how we see them in the real world and how they can use them to make their arguments more effective as well. So that is it for 2 days of this unit, because it takes me 2 days to get through it all. And the next day we will talk about how we review the appeals before the quiz.